I'm so grateful you are all here this morning. I was in what we call a gathering last week. I work with a group called the Alchemy Collective, and I don't know, I'm on another planet somewhere. I did not prepare well for this morning. I brought some great information to share, but I didn't bring quotes and stuff at the beginning. I didn't bring any of those wonderful things. So I'll just ask you to join me in an invocation. Father, Mother God, we are so grateful for your presence here this morning as we celebrate with you in this special time of year. We ask now for our guides and angels, loved ones in spirit, and all of those of the highest vibration to step in closely. And we celebrate that by repeating the words the Master Jesus taught us.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Why don't we always say that so slowly, like it's a dirge? It's supposed to be fun, right? It's supposed to be uplifting. So, yeah, I wish I could tell you more about these gatherings because it's such a marvelous experience. We are just held and surrounded and filled with love for an entire week, and it's really disconcerting to come back from these things. This earth doesn't feel real to me at the moment. It's really hard to feel grounded. So bear with me if I stumble around a little bit because I don't know where I am at the moment. How many of you, when you were younger, would go to Easter services at church, like the sunrise service? I remember the sunrise services feeling like they were really special, partly because, you're still half asleep and not really there anyway. But it just felt so special and so sacred to be there, and the priest, the minister, for me it was always a minister, would sing such beautiful music, and then he would share from the good book, right? We read the story of Easter and tell the story of Easter every single year. This year, I'm going to do that a little bit differently. This is from a book called Jesus, My Autobiography. It's obviously a channeled work by Tina Louise Spalding. And I want to read the story of Easter, the story of the crucifixion and resurrection in Jesus' words, which is a little bit different than the one that you will hear from the Bible. And he says, he was talking about the miracles, the calming of the sea and the feeding of the multitudes and those. It says, these miracles are not as miraculous as you think they are when you begin to comprehend that everything you see is playing out in your mind as a dream. For in the dream state, in your normal sleeping experience, you can change things instantaneously as soon as you realize you are dreaming. You do not comprehend that this idea of lucid dreaming can also apply to your life as you live it now. That is all I was doing. I was expressing my ability to lucidly dream in what you consider reality. However, as you raise your consciousness out of the physical world and into the higher realms, it appears to be another level of dreaming that the world exists in. As you pass over into the afterlife experience, into the life afterlife experience, your life will be recalled as a dream, just as you do when you wake up from sleeping. When you pass over into the non-physical, when you return to the higher realms, you remember your life as if it were a dream, and for some of you it has been a nightmare. This is what we wish to change. No one needs to live in a nightmare. You have the ability to change your dream, but you must understand how the system works. And then he goes on to say, so I was working with a difficult crowd, so to speak. I had a lot of hecklers, and there were a lot of beings who believed the very opposite of what I taught, which is that love is the way. This is why I taught in that culture at that time. Earlier I described my trek to the Far East and into the peaceful and esoteric mind investigations that were taking place in Tibet and northern India, and really my heart wanted to stay there. I loved the passivity of it, and I loved the calmness of it, and I loved the intelligent investigation of mind that takes place there. But my work was in a different part of the world. It was with regrets that I returned to it, but my Mary was there, and I knew that that was where my work needed to be. He does in this book talk about all the travels that he went on before he came back to Jerusalem and the Middle East and start his teaching career, shall we say. You do not need to do this work where it is already being done. You need to do this work, teaching the relief of suffering where people are suffering. You do not need to preach to the converted. This is the phrase, is it not? You do not need to preach to the converted. You need to preach to the people who are suffering. The other side of that coin is that beings who are suffering are far from where you are, and so you must find a language they can hear from where they are. That was why I taught in the way I did in my public encounters. As this ministry continued, there was much dissent. The more the crowds gathered and the more influence I had over the local beings, the more concerned the priests and officials became. There arose a groundswell of desire to put an end to this disruptive force. For you must understand that I created events by my teaching and by my presence that would at times put a town out of business for a day. There would be so many people coming to listen to me speak, so many people with sick family members or needing their own bodies healed, that entire towns would stop functioning for the duration of my visit. So I kept my visits short and sweet, as you say. Still, there was much grumbling and dissent from the powers that were within those times, so I kept moving. There were officials higher up in the realms of the government who heard these stories, and there were higher-ups in the church, the religious structure of that time, who were completely threatened by me and who saw that I was having more influence over the parishioners than they had previously controlled. They were losing their power, and this was the beginning of the end of my teaching ministry. I had talked to many, many thousands of people. I had healed many, many hundreds of people. I had instructed many people in private on the principles of my teachings, so that they could affect other beings with their own alignment with truth and with their own vibrational congruency with love, which shifts the body into a state of healing. But there were whispers and there were conspiracies arising to get me into a state of criminal activity. This is where the story takes a turn that's difficult for you to comprehend. For in your love of life and your belief in life, there is not always love for your life. There is often just an attachment to it, which is not love. But in your attachment to life and the belief that it is who you are, you cannot comprehend that I could step into a catastrophic end as I did with equanimity. However, you must understand that throughout this period after my enlightenment, I could remove myself from my physical body at will. While in meditation, I could manifest myself in other places. I could have conversations with people and they would say a physically manifested illusion of my body in front of them in what you would call third-dimensional real time. Yet I was meditating quietly in a cave somewhere. I had come to a complete understanding of reality, of the real reality that you can experience when the mind is awakened. The hardest thing for me, of course, was my family. This is a part of the story that becomes difficult for me, because Mary was not in the same spiritual vibration that I was, despite our love for each other, and despite the family that we had created together. This was something that was very difficult for her to hear, but she knew through our many discussions I discussed this with her for some time, and it caused her to shed many tears and to ask me not to participate. But I told her that a momentum was building, and I could not stop teaching, and the powers that be would not allow me to continue teaching. It was a perfect storm that was bound to end in confrontation. I did not want it. The human part of me did not want it, but the part of me that was connected to Source and had known these out-of-body experiences and my true nature was fearless in the face of death. For it knew that death was an illusion. I knew that death was not real, and I knew that I would be able to present myself in physical form, and I would be able to recreate a body as easily as these beings intended to destroy my body. The most difficult aspect of my teaching, the most difficult aspect of my experience on earth, was convincing my beloved Mary that this was the path of highest intention and of highest result. Our sons were completely oblivious of my life, just as your children are oblivious of your careers. They do not know if you're a criminal lawyer or an actor of some kind. They do not know what you are up to in your day, and they do not care. You are their parents, and that is all they care about, to sit on your laps and hug you and play with and all these kinds of things. My children were no different. We did not involve them in what was going on in the adult world. As this conspiracy began to breed in number and grow in power, it became clear to me that this was the time for reckoning. I went toward the eye of the storm rather than trying to avoid it. That is what happened when I went to Jerusalem, fully knowing what I would be subjected to, the betrayal by the one that you call Judas, this poor being who has become the symbol of hatred and unreliability and deception throughout your society, played a divine role in my transformation, and his part in that journey was very painful for him as a human, but on a spiritual level there was no judgment. This being has not been condemned in any way, and in fact he passed into the non-physical very shortly after I passed into the non-physical, and there was a communion of our minds, a meeting of our minds after the departure from the physical, for he was brought into awareness of his full participation on a spiritual level in this, what would be considered a terrible betrayal. But that was his job in his life. He had volunteered to play that role in this drama. And after he passed over, he was given this information. So just like all of us, he was completely blind to it. He did have a difficult time for a little while believing he had killed me and that he was totally responsible. When he passed over, however, he was given the information that this was a cooperative effort and that I had gone willingly into the experience to prove what I was speaking about. This is exactly what happened. I demonstrated that I was not a body. I demonstrated that death was not real, and that this was the most magnificent of opportunities, showing my disciples the truth of my existence. You must understand that from the perspective of the crowds of beings who were of no particular consequence, I was just another badly behaved person killed for bad behavior. This was all they took from it, nothing more. But for all the beings whom I had taught, all the disciples who I had instructed, and all those close and loving friends I had been preaching to and teaching for many years, this was a powerful event. This was an event that demonstrated my ability to overcome the physical, not because I was the Son of God. I never claimed that. That was not what I said. I always proclaimed my equality with other beings. I always proclaimed my sameness to others, and I continue to proclaim that throughout this text. But I did have some skills because of my practice and because of my enlightenment that other beings did not have at that time. So I was in a place of instruction. There was no sacrifice here. This is a very important part of this book, for your culture, having misinterpreted this act of crucifixion and death, believed that I sacrificed my life for other beings. That is not what I did. I did not die. I sacrificed my body, but the body is nothing. This was the message of the crucifixion. The body is nothing. It is already a corpse. It is nothing in and of itself. It is the animating force, the spirit, the awakened mind that can animate the body of its own volition. And that is what I was teaching. For many, many generations, your culture and the church have mistaken this act of raising awareness for an act of sacrifice. And this is not the case. This is not what that was for. It is not required. I did not sacrifice anything. I merely handed my body, which was of no consequence to me whatsoever, over to be destroyed and killed to offer up the example that this was not going to stop me. This was not going to be the end of me. This was not, in fact, going to hinder my teaching in any way, shape, or form. So this teaching that the church has taken on itself to promote, which that the sacrifice is holy, is something I wish to put to bed now. This is something I wish to put to sleep now. There is no need to sacrifice anything. You do not need to sacrifice your happiness, and you do not need to sacrifice your body, and you do not need to sacrifice yourself in any way. Wow. Your obligation is to live your life to the fullest with the greatest awareness, love, and self-expression that you can. That is what I did. I lived my life to its absolute fullest, and because I understood the lack of meaning of the physical body, and because I had mastered the art of manufacturing a new body whenever I desired it, I truly demonstrated the meaninglessness the body was, and I attempted to demonstrate that to my disciples. I attempted to demonstrate this to the beings I had taught. There were forces at play here that were grander than the individuals contained in the story. My disciples did not wish me to leave. They wanted me to carry on the way I had been carrying on. This was part of my destiny. This was part of the path I had proclaimed for my experience. I had a magnificent time on earth. I had a magnificent time of teaching and healing and expressing these divine truths on the plane for all to see. But there was a limited time for this, and it was part of my journey, part of my teaching ministry, to have this experience of overcoming death so that the beings could witness it. And of course, this is the message that has transformed me in your minds and in your culture from an ordinary being into a divine being. This thing you call the Son of God, which of course I am not more than you are. You are all children of heaven, just as I am. So that is an alternative version of what we are celebrating today, and I think it's a wonderful thing to celebrate. We'll take a few minutes for a meditation.
Music.
No. We'll just start with those 3 deep magical breaths that you take. Breathe in with the intention of relaxing and letting go. Letting go of anything that is stressing you, anything from your life, this current life that you're living. Just let it go. It has no power here, it has no meaning here. As you continue to breathe and relax, and allow yourself to drift into that space where the body is not important, that space where you are you. just allow that knowledge, that feeling of you-ness to enter and to fill you up. To recognize that that is what you are. You are love. You are peace. You are a child of God, or a spark of God. And we're just going to take a couple of minutes and allow you to experience that. If your mind drifts to thoughts of your human, your physical experience, just let them go. That's not what we're doing right now. Right now, you are allowing yourself to rise into your soul self. Rise beyond this physical experience, beyond this life. Here in this beautiful space, viewing yourself as your beautiful soul spark, you have an opportunity to think about what you would like this physical life to look like. Imagine it. Imagine yourself in perfect health. Imagine yourself with all the support and abundance that you require. Just imagine the joy and let that fill you up. You are not this body, and rejoice in that. Feel how freeing that reminder is, that you can have and be anything. It is all your choosing. Now ask your soul self, as you go to sleep tonight and every night, to remind you of that, and to come out and play with you in your dreams tonight as you build that new life for yourself, as Jesus did. Build a new body for yourself, a new life, whenever you like and in any fashion you like. Feel the freedom of that. And just allow that feeling to fill you up. Time now to take a deep breath and remind yourself of your current physical body. Move your fingers and toes if you'd like. And open your eyes whenever you're ready, with a new vision of what you can be and what your life can be. Coming back to your resurrection.